I must warn you that I've been interviewed by radio twice in Sweden, and in the end I never used it, I guess.
My name is Marco Dinter, and I welcome you to a special episode of our podcast Hinter dem Zoo geht's weiter. Usually our podcast is in German, and we're telling stories that link the conservation work of both Frankfurt Zoo and Frankfurt Zoological Society. In the last episode, I spoke to Daniel Rosengren, the FZS photographer. Daniel is from Sweden, and since my Swedish is not as good as I would like it to be, we did the interview in English. And as Daniel has quite some stories to tell, we are happy to share the original version with you. So, here we go. Daniel has crossed continents on his bicycle. He spent 5 years researching lions in the Serengeti, and currently he is the FZS in-house photographer. Daniel regularly visits our protected areas and then comes back with thousands of impressive pictures. And even the Pope has a book with his pictures at home. Hi, Daniel. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Your Vita reads anything but normal, but have you always wanted to become a photographer?
No, it was an idea that came a bit later. When I was young, I guess my first idea of what I wanted to become when I grew up was to be an artist, a painter. I liked drawing and painting when I was a kid.
And then you studied biology?
Yeah. I've always been very interested in nature. I lived right next to the forest, and I liked going out there as a kid alone. And I started to become a biologist at the university, and that's what I started my career with.
You're originally from Sweden, I think we have to say that, so yeah. There's a lot of forest. Do you remember your first picture or your first camera taken?
Yeah, my very first camera was just a analog little compact camera, but in my young teens, I borrowed my dad's SLR camera, also an analog, very completely mechanic from the 60s, but it had a proper lens, and I took it and walked out the woods at home, and pretty soon there was a moose standing there very close, and I got photos of it, and I walked on and there was a harrier flying really close, and I got nice photos of that one too. So I thought, this is easy, but later it's turned out that it's not always that easy. It can be quite difficult, and you're rarely that lucky actually.
And when did you sell your first picture?
You mentioned the bicycle trips that I did, and I did a few talks after that, and one talk was at the library in my hometown, Gävle, and after the talk I had a few printouts that I tried to sell, and then a few people did buy actually, maybe out of pity, I don't know, but that was probably my first picture sale.
Can we come back to this bicycle trips, just out of interest? Where did you go and where did you cycle?
So my first trip, the New Beginner trip, was from the North Cape of Norway down to Cape Town in South Africa.
It sounds like a beginner's trip.
Yes. It was 2 years and 32,000 kilometers. And the second trip was from Tierra del Fuego in southern South America up to Quito in Ecuador. 1.5 years and 15,000 kilometers, I believe.
And that's where you also really started to take pictures all the time.
Yeah, of course, this is something very special. You travel, you see a lot of new stuff all the time, and you want to take photos to show others, but also for your own memories. And especially during the second trip when I had a digital camera, you can see the results straight away, and then that's actually very good for learning from your mistakes and improving.
And you improved a lot because your photos are recently on the cover of National Geographic, for example, mm-hmm. and you just were awarded a prestigious prize for wildlife photographers. Mm-hmm. How do you shoot a professional picture? What does it need?
It needs a subject, say in wildlife photography, an animal, and then often the eyes are very important to have expressive eyes, but also focus on the eyes. But many times I would say actually the background is even more important. Either you have like a nice blurred out background that really helps focusing on the actual subject, but that is very important to have that, or you have a background that is more in focus, but it tells the story of the animal, of the landscape it lives in, and so forth. But also the light is crucial. Actually, the midday light, sunlight, which many people like to take photos, is kind of the worst in photography, because it's very harsh light, the shades are too dark, and the highlights are too bright. So morning or evenings with this golden light is very nice. But also a cloudy day is actually better than straight sunlight.
So avoid the sunlight.
Yeah, midday straight sunlight. Yeah, it doesn't look good.
The photo that I just mentioned, which recently won an award, shows the rainforest in Colombia in one of our FZS projects. The forest basically stretching to the horizon, and right in the middle there's a gigantic hole with rainforest even growing in that hole. So just one story below. How did this picture come into being? How did you take that shot?
So I was doing a flight with a small plane we were actually going to this park to explore it on foot and by boat. And on the way there, the pilot knew the most scenic parts of the park. And of course, he knew about this hole. So he flew us over there. And I had the front seat next to him to take photos. And we opened the window so I could shoot out. Not having the window reduce the quality of the images and being in the way. But of course, this is also difficult because the wind is very strong. It tries to rip the camera out of your hands and also shakes it. So it's important to hold the camera still, not to have blurry photos. But still, with an open window, it's still kind of limiting. You want to avoid the wings being in the image or the wheels of the plane being in the image, and the window is quite small. So a different flight I did, for example, in Guyana, we took the whole door off, which gives you a lot more space to move around with the camera. Of course, it could be more scary to many people, but I actually liked it quite a bit. And this plane was, some parts of the interior was just taped in place, and the safety belt I had, it was coming loose all the time, so I had to constantly tighten the strap to stay in my seat. But it was a lot easier to actually work without the door.
That's a story your mother is not happy to hear.
No, she can't listen to this.
Do you sometimes are afraid of getting hurt on your job, or especially when you're you're partways alone as well in the rainforest, right?
Yeah. It helps if you are alone to take photos, to disturb as little as possible. But I guess there are risks. But also being a biologist, knowing the animals and knowing that they're normally not out to get you, or knowing the body language and can tell when they are upset or when they are relaxed, it really helps. And it also helps not being scared then if you understand your subjects much better. But one time when I was taking photos of elephants in the rainforest in Sumatra, Bukit Tibapulu, one of our projects, we got a bit too close, and unintentionally, we had actually cornered these elephants. There was a river on the other side that we didn't realize, so they had no way to escape, and so they felt cornered by us and actually attacked us. And that time it was very close. It was not a mock attack; it was a real attack to actually get us. And I guess I was a meter away from being crushed by this elephant.
That sounds crazy, but you were lucky then. How did you escape?
So I was running in this rubber boot that was slightly too big, and my legs felt like spaghetti, and I just saw this fallen tree, and I thought if I can somehow get to this tree and lie under the tree or something, I might make it, no? And because I could tell the elephant was coming behind me, I was trumpeting furiously, and I felt it was gaining on me, and I just kind of stumbled into this tree, and I was lying on my back looking up at this elephant coming at me, and I thought, this is it. But then because I was lying still, and elephants don't see well, It missed me with about 1 meter and just continued running and disappeared.
That is one crazy story to tell for sure. I mean, especially elephants, who are these majestic creatures, they fit in a row of very beautiful pictures you take of animals, of landscape, beautiful landscapes. But you also have to document the destruction, especially for your work at FZS, like cut down forests, monocultures, poisoned rivers or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have the feeling that your pictures make a difference in conversation?
Absolutely. Today, so much is about images, like all social media. If you don't have an image, you don't really catch people's attention. But also in fundraising and showing people what you do, it's very important to have images. And this old cliche that a picture says more than 1,000 words, it is really true. And I have particularly one example when my photos had a direct impact on protecting an area. And it was actually this flight in Guyana that I talked about before. We were there to map out illegal gold mining in the park. And illegal gold mining is actually really quite bad. Not only do they cut down forest and destroy the ground, but they also use mercury to extract the gold. And this is a very dangerous poison, both to animals and to people. And this gets spread out in the river, the fish get it, and people who bathe in the river downstream get this, and they eat the fish and they drink the water, and it can have very serious impact. So after we'd done this flight, actually about half a year later, I was told that they had been in the project area, they had been making a report to the authorities in the country about this for the last 5-6 years, and nothing happened. But this time they made a report with my photos included, and it went straight up instantly to the president of the country, and he said this cannot happen, and sent people there to stop it all. So that feels very good to have both protected this beautiful, amazing national park actually, and also the people living around it.
You now mentioned Guyana, where this gold mining was taking place, Colombia, and also Bukit Tigapulu in Sumatra. So you visited a lot of projects already. The Frankfurt Zoo just established the Conservation Euro, which also supports Bukit, for example, but also other projects from FZS. Have you visited them as well?
Yes, I've been to all of them, and it's all quite different areas, but all very fantastic areas. Like I think we haven't mentioned Serengeti yet, and the Visby town is here, not far from Frankfurt. And nice areas. And I think it's a very fantastic thing, this Naturschutzpodcast.
Yeah. And the Manu National Park, of course,
and
in
the Manu
Peru,
National Park, yeah.
which I know you've visited before as well, right?
Yes, actually, long before I knew what FZS was, 20 years ago, actually, I worked there on a research project studying this wild dog, the short-eared dog, it's called, and it was the least known canid in the world, and we tried to capture it, to put a radio collar on it, to study, its life and what it eats and stuff. But so little was known about them, we didn't even know what to bait the trap with, so we never caught one. Now afterwards we know that it eats fruit actually, and that's what we should have been using in the traps.
That's unfortunate though. When FZS is working somewhere, we usually work a lot with the people as well, because there's people living on the edge of protected areas, for example, sometimes even within national parks. There's people working in the projects. Do you also take pictures of the people?
Yes, and that's a very important part of my job too, partly to show what we are doing, our staff is doing on the ground there, but also to show the life in the villages around. And it is important to work with the villagers around the parks, because often they might be going into the parks to get firewood or to get food, poaching. And if we want to stop this, we also must find alternatives for them so they can still go on and have a good life. And to document this is, of course, an important part of my job.
And how do people react when you come there with your big camera and say, okay, I'm going to take a picture of you now?
Yeah, it's easy to, and that's the feel I have, that this will be intimidating to them, and I will be kind of disturbing them, and yeah. But it's actually usually the complete opposite. They're very proud that someone comes from Europe to take photos of them, and if I missed someone, they will make sure that I will take photos of them too. And then they say, oh, you haven't taken photos of me. And when I take photos of someone, a lot of people might jump into the background to try and be in the photo too. And which is a bit of a problem sometimes when you want to take natural looking photos. And I often have to tell people to try to ignore me to get more natural looking photos.
And you're also taking pictures of employees.
Yeah. And a nice side effect of that is actually that they feel that the work they are doing is important. No, I've had many of them tell me that straight, actually, that it's nice to have you come here and take photos of me. It makes me feel like what I'm doing is important and the job I do is good.
And you've been doing that job for years now. Are there any changes in your way of working?
Yeah, I guess the most changes is me. I'm learning for each trip I do. I'm learning more and more, and I also learn when I see what FZS is using in their magazine and on their social media. I kind of know more and more what type of photos that they want and what photos they don't really need. So I guess I'm the one changing. And of course I learn a lot, and I still make mistakes that I learn from and improve, and it's a nice part of the work too.
And do you have anything which you could take pictures of again and again, like any favorite subject, basically?
I do like birds very much because they often very pretty, and they do like posing, sitting on top of branches or rocks and things. So they're kind of models in that way. But I also like cats, like the lions, of course. I worked with lions, and they have very expressive, like all cats have very expressive faces and eyes, and very strong eyes. And like I said before, eyes are very important. But I also like being in the rainforest to take my torch out at night and look for animals, mostly small insects and critters that move at night, but also the larger animals that you see. And it's very exciting going out at night with the torch, because normally the first thing you see is the eye shine reflecting back from the torch. And having done this quite a lot, I've also learned to kind of tell what animal it is just seeing this eye shine. Like a spider, for example, will have like a little white twinkle like a star, while a moth has a bigger orange eye. It's usually, if it's sitting on a leaf or something, it's completely still, or it's flying around and hovering. And then larger animals, like a little primate, nocturnal primate, the bush baby or galago, they have very bright orange eye shine, and you normally see two eyes always with them because they have stereo vision, like most predators do, like the cats. Cats have also two eyes, but also incredibly strong, but green light. And if you see an antelope, you usually just see one big greenish white eye, because they have eyes on kind of separate sides of the head, so you just see one eye normally when you see them. But it's yeah.
And have you anything still on your bucket list? Any animal you would love to take a picture of but weren't able to yet?
Yeah, a tiger would really be the dream, and we have them in Sumatra, but it's also in the rainforest settings very difficult to actually see them and be close enough to take a photo. Yeah.
And as a photographer, do you have any philosophy for your pictures?
I guess an important thing is to be respectful of what you're taking photos and not disturb, disturb as little as possible, because I think it's important just to respect the animals, but also it improves your photos, because if you do disturb them, if they do feel fear, you'll see it in the photo too. If they're scared, they will walk away or run away or look scared, and so the less you can disturb them or intimidate them, the more natural looking photos you will get too. So it actually helps you to not be too invasive with your camera.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.